Welcome, dear listeners, to the Speak and Flow podcast, where we dive into unique strategies to help you and your team achieve maximum potential and flow, even in high-stakes conversations. Today, I have Jonathan Cayton, who is an experienced mediator, to talk just about that. Hi, Jonathan. Welcome to the show.
Nice to be here, Melinda. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad you're here. Well, I know mediation can be overwhelming, complicated. Like, what makes it rewarding for you?
It's not as complicated as probably anyone realizes, but whether you are getting a cup of coffee at Starbucks or you are in a work-related meeting, you're negotiating and mediating just about every moment of your life. Anytime you have an interaction with another human being, it's happening. Most people just don't think of those interactions in the context of mediation or negotiation. Um, so it's incredibly rewarding because once you get into it, you start to kind of pick up on all the weird little aspects of life where conflict could arise if you took one path, but since you recognize that there was going to be conflict, you took a different path. Um, and when you have to actually get into mediation and negotiation in the legal context, it's extremely rewarding to watch someone get out of a very miserable situation, usually, because now that they're in a courtroom or a mediation conference room, they've probably spent tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars on attorneys, and there's a really high stakes issue on the table. And they know that if they have to put that issue in front of a judge or a jury, it's still basically a coin flip whether they're going to win or lose. It's a gamble when you go into that courtroom. So it's very rewarding to watch people end that uncertainty and have resolution.
Yeah, I can see that. It's just ongoing, lots of time, lots of wasted energy to go down that path. And so when you can avoid that path, more power to you, more time saved, more energy, brain cells saved, heartache,
Emotional capital. Yeah.
emotional capital. So Jonathan, what are some of the key things, challenges, and people what they struggle with when it comes to having these conversations, high stakes conversations?
Well, we only see the world through one perspective. I mean,
Hmm.
as much as we try and empathize or sympathize with other people, and I'm not saying don't do that, but we still tend to be myopic human beings with a very limited view of the world. Um, and we assume that other people look at the world exactly the same way that we do, which is why, in moments of anger, we will often say, this person must be crazy. Like, how can they be acting this way? Because they're doing something that I would never do.
Right.
When in reality, what they're doing probably seems extremely logical to them,
Right.
and they're confused as to why you're acting the way you are.
Right.
Yep. So getting people to appreciate just that alone, that's a struggle. I mean, it's very, very difficult to try and put yourself literally in the shoes of another person. But if you can even incrementally get a person to appreciate that maybe that other perspective is not coming from a uh, a horrible or a place of animosity, like maybe that's genuinely just the way they're looking at a problem and you're seeing it in a totally different way, you can usually move folks toward resolution just by getting them to that point. Like
Mhm.
maybe the other side's not evil. Maybe you're not evil. Maybe there
Yeah.
is a way to try and harmonize what's going on here for everyone's mutual benefit.
Yeah. So are you saying that when people speak, they're coming from a combative place, the person is evil?
Not always, but once
Or
someone gets into a courtroom, they're usually pretty amped up. But
yeah.
even, I mean, heck, um, even if you go to a coffee shop, let's use Starbucks as an example. There are probably times where you've watched someone be extremely rude to a barista for
Right.
a seemingly innocuous reason.
Hmm.
Their name was spelled wrong, or They asked for oat milk and they got almond milk or whatever. A problem that can be easily fixed, but they have an emotional outburst as a result of it.
Right.
You can ask yourself why. It
Okay.
probably has very little to do with mixing up oat milk and almond milk. There's
Mhm.
probably some deeper problem that they're going through that day. Maybe they
Right.
had a fight with their spouse before they left home. Maybe their kid's going through something at school. It probably has nothing to do with the fact that you, as the barista, mixed up the milk.
Right.
And just appreciating this person's probably having a bad day,
Right.
even though I'm going to have to encounter 1,000 of these people today, and this is my
Yeah.
burden to bear,
Right.
can at least help you avoid snapping back at them.
Yeah, yeah, right. Meaning like, yeah, they're not evil. They're not trying to be evil or with malintent. Because sometimes I wonder, why is this person so horrible? How can they think this way? And then I snap back because I am like you mentioned, I can't imagine how anybody could think or behave like this because I wouldn't do that. And then so going back to what you're saying, it's about having just an understanding that it might be because of all the other reasons, the bad.
At least if that thought crosses your mind, at
Yeah.
least if you have that inclination to say, maybe there's a reason, maybe I don't see that reason, but let me try and understand, or at the very least, let me try and be the better human being and not lose my cool. That will
Yeah.
go a long way.
So what would be your suggestion or tip to, if I do have to address someone like this, what could be something that would help me and help the conversation to address it, even if it's uncomfortable?
If someone's getting angry at you,
Yeah, and I want to address it.
number one, we mentioned this before we even started recording, but try and speak as concisely and simply as possible.
Mm,
Don't try and make an already probably emotionally charged and maybe complicated issue even
mm,
more complicated. It
mhm,
just stay stay cool, calm, collected, and simplistic.
mm.
And don't allow yourself to fall into the trap of responding in kind. You think of like escalation of force, military and police. If they pull a gun, figuratively speaking, that doesn't mean you have to meet that same level of aggression. Your
Right.
job is to try and de-escalate instead of ramping it up. Uh, you're the only one who's in control of that. So really, the only thing that you can do is try and put your best foot forward, put on your best face, your best voice, and try and use your expression to bring them down to de-escalate whatever they're feeling.
Yeah.
And usually that kind of is capped off by showing some interest in whatever they're feeling and asking questions about what is going on. Um, you might be able to help. You might not be able to help, but you might be able to just bring them back from the brink of an emotional explosion if you maintain a calm, relaxed, and simple demeanor.
Like, what I found is when the best way, like you said, when it's starting to escalate, and I want to get defensive because I'm trying to defend what I did, one of the best ways to bring it down is to acknowledge, like you said, if I can acknowledge what this person is saying, for example, you're saying to me that I am unprepared. I am unprepared. That's like me acknowledge, okay, yes, I will be more prepared next time. I don't think I was unprepared. This person thinks I'm unprepared. And what are your tips for me to not get so defensive or feel like I am acknowledging or admitting my faults from their perspective,
Well,
right?
if you use that example that you just
Uh,
brought up, if someone accuses you of being unprepared,
yes.
I say, I hear you. And how could I be better prepared next time? Like, can
Oh,
you
yeah.
help me? Um, and
Right.
with regard to that particular question, it doesn't work. But to me, the most powerful question in any conversation is why. Right?
Why?
Literally just asking why. If
Why?
someone takes a particular position,
Yeah.
uh, they're sometimes going to be very, very emphatic about it.
Hmm.
But even if they're not, merely asking why they're taking that position, why is this a concern? Why is this um, happening at this time? I mean, just the question why will usually draw out so much information
Oh,
that
got it.
that it will
Right.
help you understand the whole context of whatever's going on.
Right. They're gonna have a lot of context information to give to you. And then that way you can ask more questions or at least have a better understanding. And they feel acknowledged or heard. And
Right.
I have a deeper understanding of where they're coming from. And that from
There's a
that place, then we can at least move forward somewhere, somehow.
there's a great book by a gentleman named Chris Voss. He
Mm-hmm.
is a former FBI hostage
Yep.
negotiator. Yeah.
Yes. What is the book that Black Swan? It's a black is that's not the name of the book.
Black Swan Group is his
Black
company.
Swan Group is the
Yeah.
company.
But it's
The
Never Split the Difference is the
never
name of the
split the
book.
difference. Okay.
Right. And from his perspective, and I think he's right, one of the most important things that you're trying to draw out of another party is not your right. You don't want them to acknowledge that you are correct because that's basically them just giving up. They just want you to shut up at that point. They're done talking to you. But the slight variation on the phrase, instead of you're right, you want to hear that's right. If
Mm.
they say that's right, that's an acknowledgement that you have heard them. You
Hmm.
have now given them a framing or a mirroring or a labeling. All these are negotiation mediation terms of their position. They
Right.
feel they have been heard if they say that's right. They are shutting you down if they say you're right. But
Hmm.
listening for those subtle little cues and differences in a conversation can make a world of difference.
Mm. I love that. I love that. So listening for when they say that's right. You want to build it up to that place so they
Yeah,
feel
that's
that way.
your utter goal is
Yeah.
to make them feel heard. Yeah.
Yeah. By first not overcomplicating things, keep
Keep it
it
simple.
simple. And when they escalate, your goal is to de-escalate versus try to combat. And then at the end, you want them to feel heard, saying that's right.
Yep. Listening is one of the most important skills in any conversation.
Yeah.
And we all are guilty of it. We spend way too much time talking and not nearly enough time listening to what the other person has to say.
Right. Yesterday, I was talking to someone. He said, one of my goals at the end of the day is to ask myself, how many questions did I ask? Did I ask more than speak? At the end of the day, I'm going to ask myself that every day. Did I ask more questions than speak? I thought that was very
Yep.
powerful. You
Yeah, I
know,
mean, it's another critical element of any negotiation or mediation, the
right,
information gathering.
right,
It's why questions like why are so important. Like, I need
right,
to uncover what's going on here. And it's
right.
probably not an obvious problem. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in the situation that we're in. There's probably something I need to dig up. And the only
Mhm.
way you're going to do that is questions.
Love it. Awesome. Thank you, Jonathan. Can I ask you what I ask all my guests? We'll close off with what is that one leadership golden takeaway that you want the audience to remember?
Lead from the front.
Ah, what does that mean?
I, it's a military reference. You can listen to Jocko Willink and basically anybody else who will be far more eloquent and in depth than I am about it. But if you really want to be a leader, you have to be prepared to actually be at the forefront of whatever the mission or the goal is. You cannot be the type of person who gives orders and expects other people to execute them by themselves
Mhm,
without your support from the front of the job.
mhm,
You've got to be willing to participate.
mhm,
Sometimes that's not possible. Sometimes you do, you can't be on scene or you can't be leading every single aspect of something that your team does. But they have to know that if push came to shove, you would be out there with them and you would be the one taking charge on point, leading them literally. Yep.
Lead from the front, lead them from the front, and they feel that you're right there with them.
Right. I mean,
Go down there with them.
think war movies.
Yeah.
For anybody who hasn't served in the military, it's probably the easiest context.
Uh-huh.
But follow me.
Yeah.
I'm going, everybody follow me.
Right.
But I'm going to take the lead. Yep.
I'm gonna take the beat, and I got your back.
Right.
I love it. Thank you, Jonathan.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for your insight. I have learned so much today, and this is so important to me to have these powerful conversations, because I know that even though it's uncomfortable, but when we do them effectively, it could be just powerful and fulfilling on the other side. So thank you so much for sharing with the audience the powerful tips on how to do that. I trust that the audience has taken away your golden nuggets to implement right away. And remember, anytime you have a moment to have a conversation, it is also your chance to connect, to thrive, and to make an impact. Until next time, see you on the other side. Take care. Bye, Jonathan. Thank you so much.
Thanks, buddy. Bye.
Thanks for joining the conversation today. Are you curious on how you measure up with your ability to speak in flow? Come grab my free self-assessment at https://speakinflow.com/assessment. And I'll see you on the other side.